Hello and welcome to Hey Clarity. I'm your host, Lindsay, and today we are opening the Akashic Records on the occult. So we are continuing the alphabet superset. We are in O week, and the occult was the chosen topic from the poll. More information about the alphabet superset is in the description box below. And the questions that we're going to answer from the Akashic Records perspective are: what is the occult? Why or how does it exist? What are the original intentions behind it? What are the biggest misconceptions about it? What gifts can we appreciate about the occult? Who is most drawn to the occult and why? What is something surprising that we can practice regularly to our benefit that is considered occultist? And then what's the most important message we need to know about the occult? So first question, foundational question, what is the occult from the Akashic Records perspective? They're saying it's a different perspective of the world, and they're showing a book. So here's the journal that I use. So they're showing a book open like this in front of me. Like instead of opening a book like this, they're showing it like this. And they're simply saying it's a different perspective of the world. And they're saying like there's a comfortability in the darkness, comfortable in the darkness. They're saying like simplified. That's what it is. They're saying the natural world of light and darkness. Some lean more towards feeling more like warm and nurtured in things that are considered darkness, dark to, they're kind of saying like the majority of like civilization or population. So they're saying like nearest to darkest, nearest to darkest. And they're showing like a hermit, the hermit card in tarot, and they're showing like, there's dark all around and he's holding a lantern, and they're kind of saying like, seeing in the darkest dark, the ability, and also being like remaining comfortable. They're kind of like not scary things, like not finding scary things there, but I'm getting finding beautiful, like mysterious curiosities. They're just saying like most beautiful things in the darkness. So the perspective is finding all this beauty in the world in the darkest dark. And they're saying like most beautiful. And they're showing like, they're saying the word death, into the unknown. So they're kind of saying like bravest into the unknown, the occultist. Okay. Anything else? What is the occult? They're just saying it's a different perspective on the world, in the world, with comfortability in darkness. Why or how does it exist? Like calling it the occult. Where does it come from? Why does it exist? How does it exist? They're saying like an idea, thoughts, preferences. They're saying wild preferences. Wilderness, wildness. Again, with this like seeing in the darkness, they're showing a person who is living in the wilderness. They're kind of saying like you might call it feral today, but someone who is like survivalist, like surviving in the woods, in the wilderness. And that can be very dangerous, but this the will to live, the will to survive, there's a little bit of like a non-duality in it, because it feels more, again, this like wild, almost like animal instincts, they're saying. And they're saying there's like the connection to nature, like a very deep natural world connection, and the relationships between all plants and animals. They're saying like all the wildness, all the wilderness. And they're showing like a woman, specifically a woman who's like in the woods, like she's in the dark in the woods at night, and I can see her eyes, like kind of like only her eyes. Like I can make out that she's a person, I can make out that she's a woman. But her eyes are kind of glowing, and they're showing her kind of like transposed next to like the visual of a wolf or a jaguar. So they're kind of saying that there's embodied survivalist nature, like ancient, like in the roots of it. And so it is like, you know, like, can you survive in the darkness? Like, can you survive with like the threat of death from the wilderness? And so they're showing that there's like a lot of the kind of like magic about it is rooted in this connection to the natural world from a survivalist perspective, and like the ideas and the thoughts and the belief systems that were embodied and embraced from this survivalist experience culture, um, and specifically in the darkness. Like there's something about like maybe those feeling more nocturnal, like they lean towards like a nocturnal, again, this comfortability. And so I'm just seeing like now this woman is like walking in the moonlight, and how beautiful that is, and also how eerie that is. And it can be dangerous, right? The darkest darkness. So they're saying like these ideas, these thoughts, these belief systems, these rituals are based on the roots of living living in the wilderness and being wild, being feral. Yeah. That's like they're just showing, it's really beautiful the way they're showing this woman walking in the woods. Like I feel the danger, right? Because you're among, I'm getting like the pecking order of wild animals. And so there's the danger, but there's also very much the respect for all the predators. And they're showing like the snakes, the wolves, like they're kind of saying like the things that can be like disturbing at night, you know? And again, this seeing in the dark and hearing in the dark, and like your sense is heightened. And so they're saying like, you know, witches, right? The occult witches is like those who were able to like live among nature and survive among nature and like thrive and live in the dark. They're kind of saying like, I'm seeing them more in the this woman more in the dark walking in the woods versus like in the daylight in the woods. I'm getting both, like very much both. But the fact, it's like impressive that there was so much thriving at night. The ability to thrive at night when most would feel, you know, disturbed. There'd be the disturbances, it would be disturbing to have to, the fear of survival, to have to embrace or embody the fear of survival at night. So it's a very empowered perspective, this different perspective. What are the original intentions behind the occult? They're saying survival, survivalist. The original intentions behind the occult were survival. And it just, they're saying it morphed and it evolved into all these rituals. And they're kind of saying like Satanist, like question mark, like it went into this dark place. But I'm getting that dark place is because there was like embracing the dark. I'm getting like the church like misunderstood, you know, survivalist nature, and they're like demons at night, devil at night. And so it got twisted, but then I'm almost getting that like the perspective of the occultist was like, oh, like you think because we can see in the dark, or that we can survive and thrive in the dark in the wilderness, and you can't, right? It almost, it's like there was like an attempt to like disempower or create, they're saying chaos and havoc on those who were able to survive in the wilderness, in the wildness. And so instead of having a curiosity and like maybe wanting to learn about it, I'm getting like churchgoers, like religious, like God, light, like oh the sun, like all these things, like the contrast of the light and the dark, day and night, made people start to demonize the occultist and the occult, because they're saying it's all a misunderstanding, it was misunderstood, but that the occultists kind of like embraced it, and they were like, okay, sure, like, you think we're like Satanists, you think we worship the devil, you think we're um uh like demonized or something. And they were like, boo. Like, they were like, okay, like, we're gonna take this misunderstanding and we're gonna run with it, and we're gonna be like, I'm getting like the misfits and the outliers of society, and we're gonna scare you because we think you're stupid. And it's empowering to be spooky or to spook you, because they thought they were stupid. And then I'm getting there was like a massive backlash of like the fear. It went into like the fear of the occult turned into like the burning of the witches and things like that. And so it was like, oh shit, like, they're really afraid of us. Like, this is not really funny anymore to us. Like, these people are like really sick and afraid. Um, and they're saying like no curiosity, like not interested in wanting to like understand the identity of being like a survivalist in the wilderness at night. Um, and kind of have fun embracing and being curious about these creative ideas and thoughts and rituals of surviving and living interconnected with nature. And so, what seemed to have been this empowered state turned into this like burning of the witch. And I'm getting, for some, it made them go hard, like, it made them go even harder. They're like, yeah. And then it started to, I'm getting like it goes into like people truly like worshiping like Satan, and this like embodying this like these demonized ideas and turning them into like ideals. And so I'm just getting like it kind of teetered, like it went a little too far. But it was like a fuck you, like, you're first it was like, oh shit, they're afraid and they're killing us. um so maybe this isn't funny. And then it went to almost like war, right? It was like, all right, cool, like, we're really going to embrace this shit. And I'm getting like, and then it went into like some darkest darkness turned into like a sickness, right? Like illness and like true disturbances. So it's got a spectrum, there's like a range. um but I'm getting like a lot of it was like a big misunderstanding. I'm getting like the big like societal kind of like divides. And it was really kind of based on like who was able to only survive in the day and who could survive day and night. They're kind of saying, if you really want to like oversimplify it, it was kind of that. Okay, what are the biggest misconceptions about the occult? They're saying all Satanists, all demon worshippers. And they're like, no. Well, like, not at all. Not really. They're saying like younger. I'm getting that like maybe when you're younger and you start like learning about it, like, I'm getting like young generations in like rebellious, almost like teenage years, might explore it from that perspective because they feel threatened and they want to be threatening. And so I'm getting that like they might explore it for those intentions, but then the more they learn about it, they're saying, depending on the person and the person's personal, perception and intentions, as they get older, they learn more about it, and they're like, oh, like, it's not about like curses and demons and worshiping the devil and sacrificing and blood. Like, they're showing all these things. They're like, oh, it's about these other really cool things. But they're like, some of that could be part of it, but it stems from like a survivalist nature and not evil. But they're saying some people take it there. Like, it can be somewhat evil depending on the person. And they're like, you're all individuals. Like, you make your own individual choices of how you embrace like ancient traditions and belief systems. And then you put your own personal spin on it. Right. So you like, and they're kind of saying there's so much information and there's so much misinformation and so much gets lost in translation over the years, over centuries. And so there's a lot of misguided information about what the occult is, like the origins of it. Um, and they're like, and that's okay. You're going to, all belief systems, all ideas, all like, they're kind of saying like societal cultures and things, like they have their evolutions and they have, they're saying like mistakes in the belief systems and misunderstandings in the belief systems. So the biggest misconceptions about the occult is that I'm getting like, it's like people assume, oh, like Satanist, and it's actually like really rooted in survivalist and like really impressive, almost like superpowers of like, oh, like the human can really survive and thrive and live among the wilderness at night. Whoa, like that's pretty cool. What gifts can we appreciate about the occult? What gifts can we appreciate about the occult? They're saying traditions and like the natural world. And they're saying like the same way that you would appreciate learning from the indigenous about the natural world. Um, the roots of the occult are in the natural world. And so they're kind of saying it's the same thing. It's just it's a different perspective. It's another perspective of, thriving and the interconnections within nature. And they're saying there's so much information and you see, what's tried and true like over the centuries. So you can do some research and read lots of books, and they're kind of saying you take what works for you and you leave the rest. They're like anything else that you're researching and studying and curious about. But they're saying like remain curious, and they're saying like go deep or like stick to the surface level stuff, like whatever works for you. But they're saying like, survivalist bound. Like if you have that desire to like study like survivalist roots, like the occult is one option to explore. Like you want to research the traditions of the indigenous, and also you might be curious about the occult because that was just like darkness. Like how you can basically be like a predator at night surviving in the darkness. And again with this like non-duality. Who is most drawn to the occult and why? Who is most drawn to the occult and they said outcasts, like shunned, like assumed witches, or like kind of having that blueprint of being a witch, like people who are like outcasted and like kicked out of groups. And it's because it awakens this innate need for survival, and it might click in past, it might like remind you of past lives. And so you're like digging into your personal histories of survival, like being in survival mode, and what you did to survive in darkness. And they're saying the darkness could be, the physical darkness of your environment. The darkness could be, the landscape of your mind and your emotional situation. So they're kind of like seeing like, let's say it's some kids or some teenagers, and they're showing, someone on a playground with some kids or whatever outside at school, and someone gets like pushed, shoved, right? Pushed away, right? Outcasted. And it's like the experience of that shunning and that being outcasted, it almost like they're showing the push, like pushes the person through past lives, like way into the past of when they've experienced this feeling and before. And it kind of clicks into them, oh, like now I need to survive. So like what tools and resources do I have in my soul memories of when I've had to survive? And so that is a commonplace experience. They're saying outcasts. or people who are assumed or like triggered into darkness or categorized. Like maybe they're not even like that, but then like it's projected onto them so much, they're like, okay, like I guess I'm gonna check this stuff out because everyone else is saying I am this, so maybe I am this. So they might start exploring kind of like by default or something, or like by accident. Um, but usually it's like if someone's it's like has to do with like threatening, like someone's threatened by you, you're threatened by them, and it's this whole threat thing. And the threat thing they're saying is like curses, right? And here's the back and forth and the backlash of curses. And they're kind of saying the origin of curses is like, you know, stemming from your thoughts and your words and your ideas towards someone, your intentions. So they're like curses, and they're like hiss, like a snake. Or they're showing like a hiss, like a cat. And again, this animal nature, you know, the pecking order and the predators and the survivalist of like, they're like cat versus snake, you know, or like different predators, or like apex predators in the wilderness. And it just activates so much that is embodied in you on like a soul level when you're outcasted. It goes really deep because it's really threatening. And it's whether or not you're threatened by whoever's, you know, pushing you out, or they're threatened by you. This whole threat thing kicks you into survival mode, and all of the things on a soul level that you need to tap into for tools and resources to survive, which may include your understanding or misunderstanding of what the occult is. So that's why, that's who is most drawn to the occult and why. What is something surprising that we can practice regularly to our benefit that is considered occultist? What is something surprising? They just said make a wish, like making wishes, like setting your intentions, like sweetly. And they're showing someone staring into a candle or staring into a fire pit or fireplace, staring into fire, trance, and they're saying visions. And also visualizations and also manifestations. So there's like, they're saying like fire has its place in visuals, information, messages, intentions, wishes, and they're putting in quotations, curses, you know, something really activates and clicks in when you are mesmerized by fire movement, because it's primal. It activates like a primal instinct in you and memories of primal experiences in the woods, in the darkness, when you may have been someone who practiced the occult, or before, you know, whatever that turned into, surviving in the dark. So it's such an incredible primal instinct activator to stare into the flame of a candle, or to stare into a fireplace or a fire pit. And they're like, we all have this knowledge when we do that. So that's something that we can do. And they're saying, and make a wish, you know, like visualize something. And they're kind of like, you know, it's depending on you what wish you're making, right? And then they're like, there's also the karma of some of those wishes, which is where there's like the cursing stuff. So they're saying like, make these like happy, healthy wishes, like for everyone, you know? And then there's like no karma really. It's just there's such this like loving kind of giving, and then come back karma receiving energy towards it. And then they're kind of like, but if you like focus on like a bad intention or like a curse towards someone, then I'm kind of getting like you almost like throw this knife out and like maybe it gets them, but then that knife goes back and like aims right back at you. So it's more of like the energy you put out comes back. And so when you're doing this visualizations, like they're like, all right, like you want to go like Satanist cursing, demonized whatever, like they're like, go for it. Like if that's the wish you want to make, then you'll experience the outcome of that wish, whether or not I'm getting it affects the other person or it affects you. They're saying like there can be some guilt and shame attached to it. And so that could even be the karmic balance of that cycle, is that you think you want to harm someone on some surface level emotional state, but like deep down there's something else that you want. And so you're misconstruing the experience based on a surface level emotion. And so the real part of you actually might feel like guilt and shame for wishing harm on someone else and worrying and wondering if something bad is happening to someone, or you're kind of like waiting and watching to see if something happens to someone. There's just this interesting thing about it, but they're kind of like, make a wish, and like whatever you want that wish to be is like really up to you. What's the most important message we need to know about the occult? What's the most important message we need to know about the occult? Behind or the past? They're saying like leave behind the past. They're saying that they like how there is more. They're saying it's good that there's been so much evolution with the idea of like mysticism, mystics, mystical. They're saying mysterious, unknown, darkness, shadow, the occult, witches. They're appreciating that it's been brought to the light of like mainstream, because they're actually saying that like ideas of the occult, even if there's been these misconceptions of it being rooted in like Satanism and all this stuff, like along the way, it's changed. There is a return of like the original meaning of it. And they're saying that's beneficial. Like that's beneficial to the ones who need it, who need to be supported in surviving through the darkness, whatever darkness means to you, right? And they're like, there's a lot of darkness like covering the world right now, encoding the world. And the survival instincts, these natural instincts that we have, and these ancient traditions of these subcultures, there's a lot of beneficial knowledge and wisdom in them, and people are researching them and they're finding these things. And I'm getting like, find your peace. They're saying, find your peace. Like things get twisted and things are twisting. And that's also part of the evolution of things. They're like, things sometimes evolve for the better and things sometimes evolve for the worst. And so like either way, traditions hold knowledge and wisdom that we can work with, that we can use, and that we can they're saying like evolutionize, and they're saying revolutionize. So they're saying like words, like use your words carefully and choose to be more innocent and curious when exploring these ancient traditions and things like the occult and even Satanism. They're saying like go into it with like this innocent curiosity of like, whoa, like there's like, could it be stories? Like let it be stories. But they're like, don't go into this stuff with the intention of harm. They're kind of saying you have enough of that in the world right now. Like y'all have too much harmful behaviors and reactions towards each other globally. So I'm getting like, you don't need occultist practices to create more harm. They're like, you're already doing that. Like, you don't need, they're kind of like, why make it worse, right? But they're saying there are occultist practices that are like really rooted in surviving in dark times and being empowered and being able to thrive in the darkness among predators. And they're even saying like making friends, like making peace. They're showing that woman in the woods and her eyes glowing and she's next to a wolf. And it's like, whoa, she befriended a wolf? Or it's like almost like they're saying like, yeah, this wolf has become her pet. And so they're like, can you befriend the things that you consider like scary or evil? They're saying sometimes, right? Like it can be too dangerous. But if there's the misunderstanding that something is like dark and evil and bad and dangerous, but it's not, it's just kind of the natural cycle, then yeah, they're saying like, why not? Why not explore with like an innocent curiosity instead of having these like harmful negative intentions towards people while you're doing the research? Okay. Anything else? Most important message? They're saying bad intentions, no intentions. Like if you're going into the occult with bad intentions, why don't you just go with no intentions and just go in with curiosity, like innocent curiosity? Because it's all rooted in survivalist nature. Natural instincts, darkness, surviving in the darkness. Okay? Cool. So thank you for watching the Akashic Records on the occult. I hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to leave any comments you might have in the comment section below. And I will see you guys next time. Happy New Year.